The tires crunched over gravel as Jake's beat-up SUV rolled to a stop in the parking lot of Blackwood Forest Campground. The late afternoon sun filtered weakly through the dense canopy overhead, casting long, spindly shadows across the deserted lot. "Are we in the right place?" Sarah asked, leaning forward between the front seats. Her breath fogged the windshield slightly as she peered out at the empty ranger station. Jake killed the engine, and the sudden silence felt oppressive. No birds chirped, no leaves rustled, just an eerie, watchful stillness. "This is it," Tyler said, checking his phone. "But where is everyone?" They piled out of the car, their laughter and chatter unnaturally loud in the quiet. The usual campground sounds were absent, no distant voices, no crackling fires, not even the hum of generators, just an abandoned parking lot and a narrow dirt path leading into the woods. Mia was the first to notice the sign. "Campsite full, no vacancy." It hung crookedly from a single nail, swinging slightly despite the lack of wind. "That's weird," Ryan said, frowning. "There's not a single car here." Jake shrugged, slinging his backpack over one shoulder. "Maybe they closed early for the season. More space for us." They followed the path deeper into the campground, their footsteps muffled by layers of pine needles. The air smelled damp and earthy, with an underlying scent they couldn't quite place, something metallic like old pennies. Then they reached Site 13. The scene was frozen in time. A grill stood cold but loaded with half-cooked burgers, their patties blackened on one side as if someone had flipped them and then simply walked away. Two sleeping bags were laid out perfectly on the ground, their zippers partially undone, as if their occupants had just climbed out. A deck of cards was fanned across the picnic table, a game abandoned mid-hand. "Okay, this is creepy," Mia whispered. Sarah reached out and touched the soda bottle left on the table. "It's still cold." A twig snapped somewhere in the trees behind them. They all turned, but the forest was still. "Probably just a squirrel," Jake said, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. Tyler nudged one of the sleeping bags with his foot. "You think they left in a hurry?" Ryan knelt by the grill, examining the charred food. "Who leaves burgers cooking, and where did they go?" Mia shivered, though the evening was warm. "Maybe we should pick a different site." Jake scoffed. "And waste a perfectly good setup? No way. This is our lucky break." They hesitated, glancing at one another. The abandoned campsite felt wrong, but the sun was dipping lower, and the idea of setting up their own spot from scratch was exhausting. "Fine," Sarah said, "but we stick together." No splitting up. As they unloaded their gear, none of them noticed the faint, muddy footprints leading from the edge of the campsite into the trees, or the way the branches above them seemed to tremble, just slightly, when no wind blew, or the single playing card, the ace of spades, that had not been there before, now placed neatly in the center of the picnic table. By the time they noticed, it was too late. The forest had already begun to watch. The fire crackled weakly, its orange glow barely pushing back the suffocating darkness of the forest. Jake poked at the embers with a stick, sending up a flurry of sparks. "See? Nothing to worry about," he said, forcing a laugh. "Probably just the wind." But there was no wind. The trees stood unnaturally still, their branches like skeletal fingers frozen mid-reach. Even the usual nighttime chorus of crickets and frogs was absent. The silence was so thick it pressed against their eardrums, broken only by the occasional pop of dying embers. Mia hugged her knees to her chest, her eyes darting between the shadows. "This doesn't feel right," she murmured. Sarah nodded, her fingers tightening around her flashlight. "It's like the woods are holding their breath." Ryan scoffed, but his usual bravado was thin. "Yeah, or you guys are just freaking yourselves out over nothing." He took a swig from his soda can, the aluminum crinkling loudly in the quiet. Then a whisper, faint, almost inaudible, like radio static just beyond comprehension. Everyone froze. "Did you hear that?" Tyler whispered, his voice barely louder than the sound itself. No one answered. The group sat rigid, straining their ears. For a moment there was nothing. Then it came again. Stay. The voice, if it could even be called that, was wrong. It wasn't human. It was too wet, too guttural, like something trying to form words without lips or tongue. Sarah's breath hitched. That wasn't the wind. Jake stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the dirt. "Okay, enough. Who's messing around?" He swung his flashlight toward the trees, the beam cutting through the darkness. Nothing moved. The whispers stopped. Then, from behind them, "Come, closer." This time it came from the direction of the abandoned tents. Mia's blood turned to ice. The others heard it too, their faces drained of color in the firelight. Ryan's bravado finally cracked. "What the hell?" Tyler grabbed his backpack, digging for his phone. "We should call someone." "No need." The whisper was louder now, slithering out from the empty tent beside them, the one that had been left unzipped. Sarah's flashlight flickered, then died. The fire guttered, the flames shrinking as if suffocated by the night. In the sudden dimness, something shifted inside the abandoned tent, a slow, deliberate movement, like a body turning over in a sleeping bag. Mia screamed. The group scrambled back, chairs toppling. Jake lunged for the cooler, pulling out a flare and striking it alight. The sudden crimson glare painted the campsite in bloody hues, revealing nothing. The tent was still, empty. But the zipper, which had been half open before, was now fully closed. Ryan's voice shook. "We're not alone out here." And then, from every direction at once, the whispers returned. "Stay with us." The fire went out. Darkness swallowed them whole. The fire had burned down to glowing embers, casting flickering shadows that danced like specters across the campsite. The whispers had stopped, for now, but the oppressive silence that replaced them was somehow worse. "All right, we're being idiots," Jake announced, standing abruptly. His voice was too loud, too forced. "It's just the woods, wind, animals, whatever. We're freaking ourselves out over nothing." Mia shot him a look. "You didn't hear those whispers. They weren't wind." Ryan rubbed his arms, though the night was warm. "Maybe we should just sleep in the car," Tyler scoffed. "5 of us? No way. We'll take shifts if we have to, but we're not letting some creepy noises ruin the trip." After a tense debate, they settled on a plan. Jake and Tyler would share one tent, Mia and Sarah the other, and Ryan, who insisted he slept better alone, would take the third. They triple-checked the zippers, made sure their flashlights were within reach, and tried to laugh off the lingering dread. But as Mia unrolled her sleeping bag, her hands trembled. "You okay?" Sarah asked quietly. Mia swallowed hard. "I just have a bad feeling." Outside, the trees loomed like sentinels, their branches clawing at the starless sky. Midnight. Mia jolted awake, her heart hammering. Something was wrong. The tent was pitch black, the air thick with the scent of damp nylon and Sarah's lavender body spray. She held her breath, straining to hear. Then, crunch, a footstep right outside. Mia's blood turned to ice. Crunch, crunch, slow, deliberate, circling. She reached for Sarah, but before she could shake her awake, scratch. The sound of something dragging along the tent fabric like a fingernail or a claw testing the material. Mia's breath hitched. Then the zipper. Click, click, click. The sound was unmistakable. The tent door was being unzipped, inch by torturous inch. Mia screamed. Sarah bolted upright just as the others came crashing out of their tents. flashlights swinging wildly. "What happened?" Jake demanded, his own voice edged with panic. Mia pointed a shaking finger at their tent. Someone was trying to get in. Tyler shone his light at the zipper. It was still closed. But then Ryan spoke, his voice hollow. "Guys, where's my tent?" They turned. Where Ryan's tent had been, there was now only a patch of flattened grass. No fabric, no poles, just gone. And in the dirt leading into the trees, 5 long scratches, deep and deliberate, as if something heavy had been dragged away. The beam of Jake's flashlight trembled as it swept across the empty patch of dirt where Ryan's tent had stood just minutes before. The air was thick with the scent of upturned earth and something else, something coppery and sour that clung to the back of their throats. "This isn't funny, Ryan," Tyler shouted into the trees, his voice cracking. The forest swallowed his words whole. Sarah knelt, pressing her fingers into the deep gouges in the soil. They were too precise to be animal tracks, too humanoid. "We have to find him," she whispered. Mia's breath came in short, panicked bursts. The beam of her flashlight caught something glinting in the underbrush. Ryan's phone, screen shattered, lying in a tangle of roots. She picked it up with shaking hands. The last thing open was his camera roll. The most recent photo was pitch black, save for 2 blurred streaks of light at the top, flash reflecting off something's eyes. "We're not alone out here," Mia said, her voice barely audible. Jake tightened his grip on his hunting knife. "Stick together. We follow the scratches." The forest grew denser as they pushed forward, branches snagging at their clothes like skeletal fingers. The scratches in the dirt led them deeper, twisting between trees that seemed to lean closer with every step. Then a sound, a muffled thump, followed by a wet, ragged gasp. "Ryan!" They ran, crashing through the underbrush, their flashlights cutting erratic paths through the darkness. The trees opened suddenly into a small clearing, and there, in the center, was Ryan's tent, or what was left of it. The nylon was shredded, the poles snapped like twigs. Ryan's sleeping bag lay inside, the fabric dark and glistening. Still warm, Sarah recoiled. "Is that—" Blood, soaking through the fabric in thick, uneven patches. Tyler stumbled back, retching. Jake's knife clattered to the ground as he reached for the tent's torn flap and froze. Scrawled across the inside of the fabric in mud, and something darker, were 3 words. "Don't look behind you." A twig snapped. Something breathed, low and wet, directly over Jake's shoulder. The breath against Jake's neck was rancid, hot and thick with the stench of rotting meat. His muscles locked. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but his body refused to move. "Don't look behind you." The words echoed in his skull like a mantra. Mia's flashlight beam swung toward him, her hand clamped over her mouth to stifle a scream. The light trembled across the clearing, illuminating the shredded tent, the blood-soaked sleeping bag, and the thing standing just behind Jake. Tall, too tall. Its limbs stretched like pulled taffy, joints bending at unnatural angles. Skin like bleached bark, stretched taut over a skeletal frame, and its face, no eyes, just smooth sunken hollows where they should have been. A wet clicking sound rattled from its throat. Jake's paralysis broke. "Run!" The group scattered, crashing through the underbrush in blind panic. Branches lashed at their faces, roots snagged their ankles, but they didn't stop, didn't dare look back. Behind them the forest came alive. Whispers erupted from every direction, hissing guttural voices overlapping in a chorus of hunger. Shadows darted between the trees, always just at the edge of their vision. Too fast, too many. Sarah tripped, her knee slamming into a rock. Mia yanked her up, blood slick between their clasped hands. "Keep moving!" Tyler screamed. The campsite came into view, their gear still strewn about, the cold grill, the abandoned sleeping bags. The car was just beyond the tree line, safety, Jake fumbled for the keys, his hands shaking so badly he dropped them twice. The others piled into the SUV, slamming doors behind them. "Go, go, go!" The engine roared to life. Tires spun, kicking up dirt and dead leaves as the car lurched forward. Sarah twisted in her seat, staring out the back window. The figures stood at the edge of the clearing, dozens of them, motionless, watching. And as the car peeled onto the main road, one by one, their mouths split open in grotesque, too-wide grins. Epilogue Blackwood Gazette, June 12th. Search continues for missing teen at Blackwood Forest Campground. Authorities have suspended the search for Ryan Carter, 17, who disappeared during a camping trip last weekend. His friends claim they were chased by something inhuman, but officials found no evidence of foul play. The campground has been closed indefinitely. Notably, investigators recovered 6 sleeping bags from the site, despite the group insisting only 5 were brought on the trip.